Hey, welcome to Garden Chronicles. My name is James David, and in today's video, I'll be talking about edible plants. And this particular video is specifically known as, in local terms, as Pokok Chaya or Pokok Ajinomoto, and scientifically, it is known as Cnidoscolus aconitifolius, or commonly known as tree spinach or spinach tree. And one of the unique thing about this particular plant is that this particular edible plant is identified as a superfood or a miracle Mayan spinach. It's basically native towards the South American region, and it was identified as one of a crop food where this particular foliage were used for cooking and in a way to say as part and parcel of a daily cuisine in that ancient Mayan civilization. I would like to talk a little bit more on this particular plant, and one of the things that I find that this does very well in a tropical region in my space, and I find that one of the unique thing about this particular plant is that this is quite robust and actually also free of pest. And one of the things that I would like to talk about in this video is how do I cultivate it, and in a way also use this particular plant for cooking. And do stay back to the end of the video where I have come up with certain cuisine and some techniques how I cook it, because if you do cook it in a wrong way, it's going to be very bitter and it can be toxic if cooked wrongly, because it does contain a white sap which are very similar and typical as a Aerobia species, where it is identified as poisonous and toxic when indigested raw, or if the sap touches on the skin, which causes rash and does, in a way to say, temporary blindness if contact on the eyes. I must make a disclaimer note in a way to say that this particular species have many different varieties, hence you must in a way do your proper research and do identify that what you think you are consuming as Chaya plant is actually the particular plant, because one of the factors here is that you can accidentally get a lookalike, and in worst case scenario a poisonous plant, and you might think that that is the plant and you might accidentally cook it, and it can even be toxic even if it is cooked. So do your research carefully, as I have found that this particular plant appears to have different varieties and versions, especially even the species, where the plant may look different in different locations, and again the formation of their foliage appears to be slightly different in their forms. So do check out carefully before consuming. That is one of the things that I would consider as a warning factor, in a factor of if you are a new beginner and you're not sure and you're still figuring it out and identifying it. Unless you're a seasoned gardener and you're aware of it, I would always like to put a factor here of always practice caution before taking chances when it comes to consuming plants as food. For the unique factors, in case you're worried that you might consume ivy or poisonous ivy or something, this appears to have something similar like a papaya leaf shape, especially the foliage, and it has more like similar like a plumeria frangipani deciduous tree kind of branch or a shrub, and their flowers appears to be something like tiny white flowers in a cluster. These are the identification for this particular plant, and I believe these are the main factors of it. So if you find something very different from this, I suggest not to use it for consumption. Now, another thing that I would really like to make an emphasis here for this particular unique plant factor is that this particular plant do not have much of pest problem. And one of the things that I've actually noticed and found that it does have a defense mechanism for pest attacks, and somehow they do reward the ants for taking care of it, and you can actually notice that there is a small tiny bump on the edge of the petio, and sort of like from the side of the leaf. And I was just wondering what was this bump, and it is actually giving us some sort of like a honeydew kind of thing, sort of like an incentive for the ants to take care of this plant, sort of like a guardian, and so defends it so that none of the other creatures may come and attack or chew upon this particular leaf. Of course, there is also another factor that most of the other insects may not find that this particular plant sort of like a favorable due to the sap, and it's a toxic sap to mention. Nevertheless, somehow I find that unlike any other crop plants like spinach or even green leafy plants, this particular one somehow have that advantage. Now, this is the part that is getting interesting, is that when this particular plant was initially was introduced, a lot of hype was actually built upon it, and a lot of people actually purchased it and bought it and fried it and cooked it, and found that it is not palatable. And one of the factors about that is because there is an element of bitterness involved in it, and the problem with that bitterness is because of the sap. Now, this is the part where it is a contention, because the factor of when it's not cooked properly, the whole dish turns out to be in a bitter taste. Now, this is the problem here, because not much of information has actually been shared, or not a lot of information is given. Hence, a lot of people would do it more on their own style, and some people think that this particular plant is actually a salad plant. Actually, it's not. It's not like any other green leafy kind of plants where you can just consume it. This is not of those kind of plant because of the sap. So it does requires to have a certain technique of it, and I would like to share about this particular one. Now, of course, some people have dished it and considered it as more of an ornamental plant. Fine by it, because it still does look very beautiful, especially by its own nature, where it don't even have much of pest problem. And if you want to grow it and keep it more of that particular kind of the star-shaped leaf kind of, more on that kind of maple leaf kind of pattern, it's fine and good as cultivating it as a ornament plant, because due to its lack of pest problems, it does actually have a very strong, vigorous growth, and you can actually grow it as an ornamental plant. But let's say when it comes from a place of consumption, and these are the techniques that I'd like to share to you. Firstly, when it comes to harvesting the leaf, you may actually trim off the petio and also surrounding the area. We can look at it over here in this particular picture. You will understand what I mean. What you're interested in is this particular portion of the leaves. This is what you are going to consume. Now, of course, another technique, or most people used to say, is to harvest younger shoots or younger leaves. I would advise so, but also try to avoid very matured leaf, because it can be very starchy or can be very fibrous. In a way, it may sort of like doesn't give that kind of feel, especially when it comes to consumption. So try your best to get the one that is closer to the crown, or especially the ones that not too young, because sometimes I find that when it's very very green or very unfurling kind of leaves, those seems to somehow harbor a lot of sap on it. So try to get just the ones that is appearing right at the crown. Now, these are the portion that I actually ditch out or cut off and throw away. So do take note of these particular ones, because these are sort of like the main reason why the dish is sort of bitter or unconsumable. And one of the factors is because it contains a lot of sap in that part of the region, and that could also pay the price in a way to say a lot of toxic is actually collected there, or sort of like a poison is there, and sort of like it does not really kill you, because even though you cook it, and in a factor of cooking, it doesn't how do you say, it actually plays a lot of flavor. Here is the factor of to be safe, to remove it in a way that it gives a palatable taste when it comes to cooking. Of course, different people may actually use it, and of course, the time for boiling and cooking, so that the toxic is detoxified. But somehow I find that removing this portion somehow aids and helps the flavor of the dish. So as you can see, what I have actually done here is boiled it, and to say that in the idea of boiling it, say safely about 15 to 20 minutes, and I actually let the liquid to stay there about another 30 minutes to cool off first, and I also drain it off that boiled water. I don't use it for flavoring or anything like that, because the intention of boiling it is to remove the toxic out of the leaves. So these are things that you may have to pay attention, because you don't want to recycle it or use it. Maybe if you are intention of using it as a fertilizer, because some people actually do that, they actually trim this thing down and use it as a fertilizer, which I've seen it before, and different YouTubers have done it before. Somehow, if you are using it for ornamental plants, then it's fine and good, but not for uh, edibles. So do pay attention, because the element here of boiling is to remove that toxic factors from these leaves. So once cooked, what I've done here is I drained it and I washed it, so that it sort of like comes out, all this sap is out of the system. And I actually trimmed it to a bite portion. Do pay attention, do take note in the factor that in approximately 20 leaves is enough to serve for one pack for one person, so it is not much. So we look over here in a bowl, this is amount of about 20 leaves inside here. So approximately, if it's just for a small portion, two people may able to consume it. And if I were to trim it in a smaller portion, so one of the reasons why I trim in a small portion is so that it can be easily consumed. You don't want to eat like, a big piece of leaf and be munching it away, and sort of like, you might feel like you're a goat or something. So this is not to say any offensive thing, but some of the people who have actually cooked it for the first time found that the leaves are too big, and it's actually very chewy. So please take note that there is no flavor on these leaves. So this particular dish is that you may have to add flavoring on top of it. So you may have sort of like the sambal with anchovies or with oyster sauce. So these are required. So and the thing here is, I've actually tasted it after cooking, and I find that this particular dish or this particular leaves are very bland. So it's sort of like a bit chewy, a more like a moringa kind of leaf kind of taste. You may not even know the difference or note the difference, in that sense that like a blindfold test, that it is exactly like a moringa dish. So if you were to trim it in a smaller portion and add on to according to your flavoring or what you like for your vegetable dish, this would be just served as more of a greeny leaf vegetable. So once after boiled and trimmed down, you can actually work out whichever dish that you prefer to use. And sort of like there are a lot of benefits upon it. A lot of it also is not much researched, or research is continuously going on, but somehow I find that to each their own taste. And one of the factors here is this: once you have actually tasted it, you might find that if there is no bitterness in it, then it's actually good for consumption. So I may also advise that if you are worried about the sap and the toxicity and kind of stuff, and the how do you say, the bar, the standard of it is to identify the bitterness in the leaves. So the bitterness is the sap that it contains that is not being neutralized. So one of the idea here is to remove as much as the petiole part of it and avoid using mature leaves. I've now come to the end of my video, and this is the part that I would really like to ask you for your favor. And if you really can, I would really appreciate very much that if you can actually subscribe to my channel. And this actually helps the YouTube algorithm to sort of like select and show the element of traffic that takes place in my channel, and this would actually create more awareness for all the other gardeners here who may want to see more of the detailed information on my garden space. And hence, when there's a lot of traffic, this will actually help to garner more interest in my channel. One of the factors that I've actually noticed is through the analyst is that I only find only 2% of the people here who actually does click like and subscribe to my channel. Hence, I would really like to make emphasis here for a request. And if you really like my video, and if you find that my videos and my channel is beneficial and helpful for your gardening experience, and you look forward for looking into my garden space, I would really appreciate seriously if you can click like and subscribe to my channel, and do place in your comments, and I will more than happy to entertain and indulge myself in putting in all the queries in according to your questions based on my experience and my knowledge. Also, I would really like to request that you do check out in all your other videos here, which is under popular and most viewed, and see if at all any plants that actually garner your gardening experience. Thank you so much for your support, and see you again in my next video. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.